This is it. The pre-show banter.
There were
So
people
yeah,
that
we were talking. So do you actually have an inflatable turkey for your front yard?
I absolutely do. Also, I can send you a picture.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it says got turkey on it because the turkey is a total sellout.
Eat me, I'm delicious. I'm selling out. I'm selling out my species to butterball.
Oh, there's more people down here. Hey guys,
Let me in.
Let me in. I've been trying to get in for like an hour.
Oh,
an hour.
Sorry.
Well, I don't think so.
Oh man, I'm
First
sorry.
off, you paid Brian, oh not Brian, jeez, Ryan the bribes to get in. I've yet to be paid for.
You gotta pay twice.
Yeah,
that's right. You gotta grease every palm.
I paid like 6 bribes to get on this show. Jesus Christ, man, it's really getting steep.
Just give your plugs and leave. Just do your plugs and leave.
This one guy, I had to do a guitar competition with him. He brings out frickin' Steve Vai. How am I going to compete with that crap? Oh, sorry. Obscure Crossroads. Too obscure.
Crossroads.
Yeah.
No, I think it's probably a bit too obscure for most people.
It's not obscure for you, the listener, that knew exactly what John was talking about.
Exactly.
Oh my God, he's the James Joyce of information security. Are we ready?
I think we're ready. Are you ready for this?
Are
y'all ready for us?
this?
I mean, you're here, so that means you decide if we're ready.
Yeah.
All right.
I could just see John showing up by himself and just being like, "We're going live, guys."
That's right. Here's the
For
finger.
a while.
Here's a finger. Your finger's coming. Fingers.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Black Hills Information Security, talking about news. As always, this is brought to you by Black Hills Information Security. Did you know that instead of just hacking, we also unhack things as well? If you're interested in getting unhacked or preventing yourself from getting hacked in the first place, check us out at Black Hills Information Security. It's also brought to you by Anti-Siphon InfoSec Training. And I hate to be that guy, but if you go look on my Twitter feed, we have this Cyber Monday deal where our entire course catalog on demand is available, every class, including the cyber range, for $1,500, which is like a smoking good deal. So please check that out. I am joined today, back fresh from Thanksgiving, and we've got a crew of people.
I was trying to read that diagram. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm still reading it.
What diagram?
the diagram, the text goes around in a circle.
Oh, this one right
for all
here?
the things that we do.
Yeah,
that one.
yeah.
I was reading that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a horrible pie chart, I guess. Horrible pie chart thingy.
Just trying to figure
And
out.
I've got to come up
be
with
like-
another one.
It needs to be a spin the bottle thing.
Oh.
Yeah, just use a PowerPoint animation so it's
Yeah,
spinning
the
around
whole
in a
time it's
circle.
Spinning. It's like you can't really read it too, and adjust the frame rate so it's kind of blurry the whole time.
Yeah. It spins and it just so happens to get really flickery at 60 megahertz or something like that. Yeah, that'll recall people
And
going
at the
into
end, play the
seizures on
sound.
ground. They're like, "Oh no, Pikachu flashback." So, all right, I am joined. I've got Noah in the upper left-hand corner. I've got Mike. Thank you very much for joining, Mike. Rocking the blue team shirt. We've got Bronwyn showing up again. By the way, Bronwyn, I do like your background choice of wood. So, because
This
we
is my
remember the
house.
70s. Yeah,
This
we
is
remember.
my
Mine
house.
too. This is how we live. We live like we're in shacks, being hunted by the FBI in the middle of the woods. That's a lifestyle. That's a choice.
It's
Also
a choice.
joined by Corey, also known as I Know Him, He's Me. And Ralph is with
It is
us
me.
as well. So, first story. I do want to talk about this. We just kicked this out. Elon Musk talking about his Twitter 2.0. And normally, I
It's
don't
so
know.
good.
It's not,
Musk. We talk about him again.
We talked about it so much last week, and it's only gotten worse. It's so amazing.
so everything about him now is just getting really cringy. The thing that's in this is he's talking about people who write great software are the highest priority. And I for those of us that have been around for a really long time, whenever you get to the full stack engineers, or I'm a 1% developer, what do they call the developers that they're the better than whatever developer? I'm a top
Annoying?
1% developer. They're annoying as hell.
Pesky?
They're
I don't know.
absolutely horrible human
Egomaniacs?
beings. Egomaniacs. Yes, that's it. And I just feel like that's the company he's building now. 10x. That's it. 10x engineer. I get 10%. I get 10 times the work done of any other engineer. Every company I've ever worked with, every time I've ever worked Stack Overflow users with people like that,
all Stack Overflow users just respond.
it's always a train wreck. They're horrible to work with. And usually what you find out is they write code really, really, really fast. And then it all has to be scrapped and rewritten by other people almost always. So
and that's what Elon thinks he is. He thinks he's that, but the CEO version.
Yeah.
CEO version.
He's like, I could do 10x the management in 2 minutes.
10x management.
Well, how many companies is he CEO of these days? I mean, if he can be a CEO of that many companies, obviously it must not be that hard a job.
Well, did anyone else?
Let me get my banjo out.
Did anyone else read the Reddit post that was like, there's entire teams at all of his companies? There's entire teams. I was going to say there's entire teams at all of his companies that are dedicated to just managing him. Like they just like they take his ideas and they put him in a corner. They're like, thanks so much for this. We're going to put this in purgatory. And like they like do birthday parties for him, like all that stuff just to make him feel okay. Like because he's so demanding.
Not naked. Once again, the emperor is not naked.
Yes, it's like that, but actually at like a full-on business model level.
Hey, I heard that. I was going to say, I heard that user signups are up and user engagement is up. I mean,
what about ads?
Ads are down. Ads are down. But listen, guys, listen. The fire is the brightest when it's burning the building. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and it's like, this car wreck was incredibly successful. Did you see all the cars coming in the other lane that slowed down to watch this car crash? I'm still surprised as many people as they've laid off. And this is a testament to the previous engineers. And this is one of the things that I hate him for is he comes in. It's like, oh shit, these people didn't do anything. 75% of them disappear and this thing keeps going. I don't care what you say. That is pretty damn good.
Hold on. I'd like to compare this to like a cruise ship, right? And all the crew just jumped off the side. Well, most of the crew jumped off the side.
And it's still coasting?
It's still going, right? Like the boat's still going, the engine.
Unless two-factor codes were one of your requirements, that isn't going.
Yeah, unless that's going. True. But somewhere there's a conversation. It's like, we need to update these DNS records. Should we give that to the intern? That's going to be the end of it. Like, as soon as there's a DNS.
Some intern was responsible for registering the twitter.com domain.
Oops. It's now for sale for $18. It's like, get all over
Cyber
that.
Monday sale.
Oh, well, let's get away from this one. Because I don't know, unless you guys have something like really, really super cool to add, I want to move on to.
I guess the only thing that we should probably talk about is what. Where are people going? People are going to Mastodon, and then there's like lots of security flaws being uncovered in Mastodon because now it's getting target. It's getting used.
Yeah,
that's literally the next story. Can we jump to that story? I just put it in the chat. So that is literally the next story that we're having come up, where security experts are laying Mastodon's flaws bare. And the people behind Burp Suite, there's a bunch of vulnerabilities. I know Gareth was in there on one of them. He found the HTML injection one. Leanne Avinsky, system misconfiguration allows you to download, modify, and delete everything that's sitting in a Mastodon instance S3 bucket, which sounds bad. Arnag Sen found an anonymous server scraping Mastodon user data. And I don't know, like, is this a big deal or is this just a growing pain? Oh my God, that's a weird ad. Is this a big deal?
Probably get ad block.
Yeah. Or is this just a growing pain for this service growing like as crazy fast as it's growing? Like it's going to get more scrutiny because people are like the security vulnerabilities in Mastodon. We're going to get to the breach in Twitter here in just a little bit. I don't know how people should take this. So go ahead and jump in, Corey.
If you think about it, we actually have an instance of something growing like this before, and that was called Zoom. Yep. And we all saw what happened with that, and that's still around. Now, mind you, that was a corporate situation. Here we've got a lot more eyes on it. It seems people are more interested in fixing things as they've gone along. I know a couple of the problems that they've had were fixed pretty quickly, and it seems like, at least on the instance that I'm on, it's getting rolled out pretty fast. I'm seeing other admins trying to do the same thing. So,
and I think Ben just put in a quote that I thought was great. Ben Webb on YouTube said, well, the system's configuration was on a single instance. And he said, you have to remember that these are distributed across several instances and different administrators. And I think that distributed kind of breakdown, I think, is something that a lot of people are missing from these narratives as well. I mean, it's more a protocol and an infrastructure than it is like a company. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And each of the instances could be on a different version of the Mastodon software on top of it all. And some versions might be vulnerable to some things while others are vulnerable to others.
Yeah. So I don't know. And it's kind of like the ISR, right? You had the situation where years ago, Adobe, it was tons of vulnerabilities. And then there was vulnerabilities in Java. It's like, as it becomes the thing, like you said with Zoom, Mike, that lit everybody up on Zoom. And if you remember, there were people who were running around saying, well, I'm not going to use Zoom because of the security vulnerabilities. I don't think there were more security vulnerabilities in Zoom than anything else. It was just getting a lot more news, I think.
I think the other thing too about the Zoom particular was like the configuration by default didn't have a password. And so people were Zoom bombing and they were like, oh my God, the security. They're like, you can enable a password. They're like, what? Oh,
that's a checkbox.
Wait, you about this ahead of time?
But the Mastodon stuff sounds a little bit more specific to like being able to read, or the administrator technically being able to read private messages or DMs or whatever. So, but
it's the whole like centralized is good and bad at the same time. We talk about this in the cryptocurrency space all the time. Centralized is bad because it can be regulated and you can have, Elon Musk can buy it, etc. But also it means that like if Twitter wants to prevent people from scraping Twitter, that's an engineering decision they make and they implement it and it's across the board and now you can't scrape Twitter. With Mastodon, if someone's going to put on scraping protections so you can't just like anonymously pull every single tweet or every single whatever they're called, mast or whatever, I don't know.
No, they're called toots, I think. Or do they toot?
Yeah, they're toots.
No, don't laugh. They were called toots.
There are because it's it's
okay. Anyway, when the extinct thing farts, you can scrape it. So basically, like implementing that is going to come down to each admin, which is, I guess, good if you're on the super secure admin that's like doesn't go on vacation ever, but bad if like there's a problem and the guy's like, oh, sorry, I'm in Hawaii. Like I'll get back to.
It is funny though.
You run into stuff too though, where like if we request the resources like via subpoena, like you have to be able to provide those or you get those services shut down. So I mean, that's where your admins are going to want to have retain that access. Otherwise, the entire service potentially could get shut down and completely.
I don't know if they can do that though with Mastodon because it's a protocol, right? Like you can't just. It gets a lot more difficult.
They can still black hole the domain you're using and like.
True.
Is there any private content in Mastodon? Is there DMs? Oh yeah, the thing with the DMs where like if you tag someone in a DM, it pulls them into the DMs.
Yeah.
So you're like, wow, Ralph is such an idiot. You tag him and he's like, oh, I'm an idiot. Thanks, man.
I've been brought into this, right?
Oh, thanks for bringing me.
The other thing I think that we've got to learn as a species is every time that there's a new social media platform, like we don't just want to go, well, I'm now doing all my dick pics over here. I mean, it's just, and when are we going to learn? Like, none of this crap that you put on these things is private. Like if it has a public component, a private component, just assume. I mean, I've had a ton of people that left Twitter. They're like, I'm leaving Twitter right now and I'm deleting all of my DMs because it's all going to be public anyway because of Elon Musk and all these things. And I recommend you do the same. If you have my DMs and you post them publicly, like I'm not going to be that worried about Twitter because I didn't put that crap in Twitter in the first place.
Right. I do think it was interesting though, because people were upset about Mastodon because they're not like encrypting the messages. But I was thinking to myself,
PG pre-encrypt your own messages.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, why not just use like the 17 other end-to-end encrypted messaging platforms to make that communication? Like, do you need that? The whole point of Mastodon is to tweet it out to the world or toot it out to the world, right? Not to just send DMs.
Toot it out.
Whatever. Just
this should be a T-shirt. We need to get a T-shirt that says "Toot it out."
Toot it out.
Toot it out like it's going extinct. # Mastodon.
Yeah,
don't make me get my train shirt that says "Who tooted" on it.
Yeah.
In fairness, come on, you got to understand. the guy who made Mastodon, one guy, right? Am I mistaken on this? And did he ever have any expectation that it was going to have to scale to this insane degree overnight? Come on.
I mean, yes, if you were designing something that's supposed to be a social network, you would hope I hope people use it.
Come on. I'm taking Bronwyn's side on this. Like, there's a social network, like, I'm going to get a few thousand people on this, to like, how come you didn't plan on it scaling to billions of people? It's
yeah.
And it's a learning curve. Come on, unless you've been working on making solo enterprise level software that can handle hundreds of simultaneous connections, thousands and thousands of users. Come on, it's not fair.
I don't know. I don't think it's that hard.
Project. It is.
There's 738 contributors on GitHub, so that's like the size of Twitter engineering, at least.
At least at this point. But I will say this though,
Twitter's open source. Come on.
Here.
I mean, the Linux kernel isn't like, oh, this is hard. Linus Torvalds, like, I don't know.
I want to bring up like some of the things people are bringing up. Right, the protocol is ActivityPub, and Requiem 2099 has pointed out there's an argument to be made about the fact that this was a protocol, not a platform, and that's a good point. I think that that's a very solid point. I won't like his internet bill. Oops.
Yeah, really, that's another thing. Who's paying to host this? InfoSec Exchange. Like, are we just donating? Like, you give a gig of RAM, you give a gig of RAM. Like, I don't know.
You pay in RAM.
With that.
You pay in RAM?
Yes.
Yeah.
If only there was a blockchain. No, wait, no, too soon.
All right, so let's bring up another story talking about a company that has lots of money. I thought we talked about the Twitter breach, the 5.4 million Twitter users. Their data was stolen and leaked online, and there's more privately. None of this information is like, for me personally, it's like, oh, well, that's super interesting. But I can see, especially if you're like a troll account or an anonymous account, like this could be bad.
Is this all the private DMs?
Yeah, they didn't release that.
Or trans, or somebody who might be targeted by some of the more radical extremists these days, who seem to think that it's their
So
mission.
This is like the 8th time there's been this data set, and the biggest thing about it is the doxing of people that run multiple accounts and use the same email. Like, people like bad. There, like Bronwyn said, there will be people like taking advantage of this. Like, of course, like any data breach, but more so it's, turns out the guy with at google.com is running the F Google Twitter handle or whatever. Those kinds of revelations, because phone number and email are very doxable. So like if you're running the Big Ben Twitter account, then now everyone knows that you're just like bigben@gmail.com or whatever.
So with all of this, Stuart B. Smiles Gmail said likelihood of Twitter being dropped by Apple. I don't know.
Oh, so this is...
I don't think that they're going to get dropped.
So this is because... So this is like... People are saying that Elon's on a collision course with Apple because, first of all, he's on a collision course with everything.
Everybody.
And he's basically like a kid with whack-a-mole. He's like, I can make you mad. I can make you mad. I can get sued by you. I can get regulated by you. But yeah, so this is like, because he said, like, of course, this is just a tweet no one asked for. He's like, we'll make our own phone. Like, what? Like, no one asked for you, but I guess he's like, oh, this 30% revenue cut is BS. We'll make our own phone if you take us off your app store.
3 Twitter engineers that can make that phone in a week, dude.
They're just like, they taped the Twitter logo over the iPhone.
They made a device.
This is the jitterbug. That was...
God, that's a deep cut. That's a
all you can do is tweet directly at Elon. That's all the phone does.
All the phone does tweets at Elon. It runs Android though.
Yes, it's a meltdown. I think it's just he lack of social awareness, lack of social skills, the desire to feel like the Trumpian desire to be like, I'm the best, I'm the greatest, like that kind of. It's just like, we'll make our own phone. You don't like our phones?
How hard can that be?
People on Mars 2015, right? Or Cybertruck or whatever. Like, pick your poison, right?
I think the funniest thing about it, in my opinion, was the fact that he tweeted it and it said tweeted from iPhone on the bottom of the tweet.
No, they took that off. They took that entire device identifier off Twitter, I thought.
Oh, did it actually?
They said they did.
Yes. It does say Twitter for iPhone on his tweet right now, right on the website.
It does. Okay.
It
That's
does say
pretty
Twitter
funny.
for iPhone, yes. On the
We've,
Twitter.
I
we've
thought
got
they
to
were
leave
taking
Elon.
that off.
Folks, we've got to leave Elon Musk. We've got to move into something
We could
else.
just talk about
We
this
have
all
to.
day.
I
It's
want
been
to
a
talk about
long time since we stopped talking about him.
Yeah,
Let's make
no,
like
no,
Twitter
no.
and quit.
Yeah, exactly. So 34 Russian cybercrime groups have stole over 50 million passwords with Stealer malware. And this one,
Whew.
it isn't just the password stealing that they got, but some of the other numbers in this are insane. Aside from the looting passwords, the stealers also harvested 2.1 billion cookie files, 113,000 crypto wallets, and 103,000 payment cards.
Ooh.
Like they've been way successful with this. I just good night. This is a very successful campaign. And what are they selling it for? Online? I can't remember what they said this. What's the street value for this? Just the underground market value for stolen logs and compromised credit cards, and that's just the credit cards, is $5.8 million.
Yeah, I think it's like it's added up though. Like this would be get cut up and sold in many different compartments, probably.
Oh yeah,
It's
it
worth
absolutely
more.
would.
It's like when you steal a car. It's worth more if you sell it off for parts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah, but the Stealer logs are actually something we're looking into for Goldmine. They're a lot of them have been publicly disclosed, and they're kind of interesting. Like, there's actually a lot of information in Stealer logs that is terrifying and very specific. There was really interesting talk at Deadwood about them.
Yeah, that was all right. I've got another story talking about Sonder, queuing it up. So this article, I don't know how interesting the article in and of itself is, but the thing that I don't like about this is there's a lot of like doubt in that. Like they basically said Sonder believes that guest records created prior to October 1st were involved in this incident. Okay, that's what they believe. This suggests the company has improved their security since that October, or the attacker managed to access an old backup copy of the data. One of those things, maybe, possibly, could be true. And then it's like unauthorized access could apply to current staff or someone who left a while ago, or a vendor, or an attacker. And then it said, additionally, Sonder believes that copies of government issues identifications such as driver's licenses or passports may have also been accessed. Tell me,
This
you
sounds
don't
like
have
someone
to
we need to
log
be
into your
calling, John, and
environment
asking if they
without-
need some help.
What's that, Noah?
This sounds like someone we should be calling and asking if they need some help.
I don't know if I want to get close to that dumpster fire.
It's obvious they have no idea what's going
sure,
on.
It's cold, but that's a hot damn dumpster fire.
Yeah, that's bad. What is Sonder anyway? What do they do?
They're a hospitality management company.
What is that? Like
Ooh,
they put the chocolate
restaurant.
on the pillow? Or no, is this like Airbnb?
I think it's my understanding of it was that it was like the Airbnb backend like stuff, but for hotels.
Okay. So it's like like the people that handle all the bookings and stuff for like hotels.com maybe or something like that.
No, it really looks like another Airbnb.
Really?
So,
Really?
by the way, the New York Times said they were the next billion-dollar startup back in
Next $1 billion.
2019. Next $1 billion.
Not with that.
They meant
$1 billion.
$1 billion fine.
Confirmed. They're still bad
Different.
at capitalism. Yes,
Different,
probably.
but the same.
So I think that this is kind of a good case study. If there's ever a breach and your company's trying to figure out how to notify people about the breach, just look at what they did and don't do that. Try to give some more specifics, or better yet, have proper logging in the first place so you can answer those questions. Because everything that's coming out of it is basically telling me that they have crap, awful logging, and they have no idea how bad this particular incident is or isn't. And it's just bad. And I was talking to an attorney a while ago, and he had an interesting take. And I've talked about it a little bit on the show in the past, where they're basically like, yeah, if we don't know, we don't log, then it's kind of a blip in the matrix and the white noise. And we're like, it might have been 20 million. Who knows? We don't know for sure how many records. We'll just give people free credit monitoring. But the reputational damage is less for an organization because they use so many words like could have been, possibly have been, that people just are like in their head, They just think, well, I don't have to worry about this at all. And that really makes me uncomfortable because I feel like it might somewhat be true from a psychological perspective, where, the less specifics a company has about the breach doesn't make their customers and stock investors say, oh my God, they're horrible at security. It's basically telling them it's not as big of a priority as it could be. And I wanted to get your take on that.
I was going to say that it sounded almost like their legal team was recorrecting them every time they went to put out a statement. Oh, we can do this. No, we can do that. It really screams of legalese on it. Now, from a marketing perspective,
I told you I talked to a lawyer, and the lawyer said that. So you might go ahead. You might be right.
Now, from a idea of protecting the brand, that psychologically makes a lot of sense, because people will go ahead and say, okay, we don't know what's going on. Okay, they're not sure what's going on. And if they don't hear something else going forward, it's going to be like, oh, it's just nothing. People aren't going to stay in tune to it at this point in time going, well, what's next? What's next? Did they or did they not get breached?
I do wonder if that has something to do with the cloud security engineer that they're hiring for right now, though. Like, that seems suspicious.
Sorry, kind of broke up there for a second. What's that?
I said, I wonder if it has something to do with the cloud security engineer that they're currently hiring for. That might have something to do with it.
What do you mean we're supposed to lock down our S3 buckets? Why didn't anyone tell us?
So, okay, this brings up, so this happens all the time. Like, government IDs are disclosed because of the KYC thing all the time, because companies are like, okay, well, we're Coinbase or we're Sonder or whoever. We have to make sure people are who they say they are. There's no way you can Photoshop a driver's license. We'll just make them take a picture of their driver's license or passport or whatever, send it to us. This stuff gets breached all the time because they just hold on to it. They put it in unsecured S3 buckets, etc. We need to, like, not to be political, but like, we need to come up with a way to change these government IDs in some way. Like, can I get a new social security number? Can I get like a new passport number without it taking a month? Like, we need to get this stuff rolling, or some better way of verifying who people are, because it's bad.
Corey, it's interesting about that is there's only one thing your social security number is legally obligated to be used for, and that's tax purposes.
Yeah. Right.
That's it. Social security number. That's it. If anybody else asks for your social security number, you can absolutely decline.
You could say no. Yeah.
Yep.
But what about like my government ID? What about my driver's license? How hard would it be to get another driver's license number, or another, I don't know, or like my passport or something like that? I don't know.
We need to make it our crypto wallets.
I think the other thing that we run into is there have been so many breaches at this point in time that everybody might just figure that their information's out there anyways, and the only thing that they really care about is a credit card number that they're going to have to go ahead and change all over the place a third time.
And that's easy to change, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone needs to do a KYC as a service type of deal, where it's like, we have a way of verifying that people are who they say they are. It's somewhat secure, and we don't require every company that does KYC to hold on to every single person's driver's license photos, passport photos. Like, it just needs to be standardized, instead of just like the government's like, well, do you have photos of everyone that all your clients' passports? You're like, I guess I need to go do that. Let me go ask. Like,
this gets back to one of the questions I keep asking. Does anyone even give a shit anymore? It's like credit cards get breached. Okay, I get a new credit card. Oh, my social security's been breached. I think like 5-6 times now.
Have you got a new social yet?
No, I haven't got a new social yet.
I don't really plan on needing social security at some point. It's not going to be a thing for me. So I'm not really terribly worried about protecting it at this point.
Well, no, it's because someone can use it to impersonate.
Yeah,
that's like anything else.
Not about getting your social security.
Here's the thing: you could become a mule for Lazarus Group, because they can just take your driver's license photo and use it to sign up for a crypto exchange, and then the FBI's like, "Oh, we see you sent money to North Korea. Don't do that." You're like, "I didn't." They're like, it's tough.
But it still comes back to, what is the thing that moves the needle? Where people are like, and I think the closest we got as a group was browser history. Like, if there was an attack that absolutely stole your browser history and associated it with you and shared it out online, that would get people worked up, right? That would absolutely get. But other than that, no one cares anymore. It's like that Jurassic Park meme. It's like, I've stolen your social security number and it's posted everywhere. See, no one cares. It just, keep coming back to it again and again and again.
There's also breach fatigue.
Oh, we're definitely there, right?
Oh, totally. Complete. I mean, it's why should I care? People already are absolutely convinced that nobody can be trusted, not the government, not the police, not anybody, not even your dog hardly anymore. And so, I mean, it's awful, because that means that people don't care and they're taken advantage of, and these problems aren't getting solved.
So I wanted to look at one of the logical conclusions of where this crap goes. The Medibank. I think we talked about it the last show that I was on. Medibank decided not to pay the attackers. And that's going to have a downstream impact on Medibank's customers, right? Their patients.
So yeah, this is an editorial piece that's basically like why you should pay the ransom. By the way, I'm totally not a ransomware actor who is going to benefit from this or anything. Here's a selfie. So here's a selfie. Unless anyone knows Chris Rock, I heard he got slapped.
He's a professional hacker and co-founder of Sim Monster.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is like a hot take, right?
And that's fine, dude. And it's not an invalid
we love hot
take,
takes.
For the record. Like, what Chris Rock is saying has absolutely valid points to it. But I think that ransomware is the only type of attack that actually gets people worked up anymore, right? They break into your own personal computer and they lock it down, and they steal. People are like, holy crap, they got access to my computer and they locked it down. All these other massive breaches, like Twitter, they got 5.8 million records. WhatsApp, I think, was another one that got 500 million phone numbers. Like, no one gets excited about this anymore at all.
I think the numbers are so huge too. People don't understand. I mean, they understand what 5 looks like. They understand what 25 looks like. But by the time you get to millions, it's no longer real. It's fantasy. It's theoretical. And so, and it's like, oh, gee, another 5 million. Well, okay, I could be one of the 5 million, but it's kind of like playing the lottery. Maybe my number isn't in there. And
X edit said, sorry, X edit just
you can get the decryption. So the core of this person's argument is basically that these ransomware firms are going legit. They're companies. They're doing business, and the argument they're making, Chris Rock is making, is the companies, if you pay, totally won't release your data, because if they did, then the next person won't pay. But that, I don't know, the whole arguing that threat actors are super reputable and will follow common sense doesn't make sense to me. Like I feel like
not
this
common.
Dude, kind of springboarding off that, Corey, the whole bullshit of don't pay, and then the attackers won't do this anymore. That only works if everybody decides to not pay.
Yes, that's true.
That's the only way. That is the only way. So if somebody in chat can come up with a different approach, but the only way that argument works is if everybody decides not to pay.
Well, so yes, you're right. And also the thing that the argument against this from me is that these organizations are completely unpredictable, and they're constantly trying to destroy themselves from within. These,
and they do. They tear each other apart.
Yes, we know this from just history. You can go as far back as you want. Attacker groups are their own worst enemies. They hack each other, they dox each other, they get mad and get into these weird we have more spam emails than you have. Well, we'll publish ours to prove that we have more than you, or whatever.
Nice.
Paying does not guarantee they're not just going to crumble and release all their data, or I don't know. I guess I would just say I think saying no one pays is silly, but I also think saying that they have a reputation to uphold. They'll totally keep your data safe if you pay.
I will, Corey, I will say this. I think that argument holds more water than saying don't pay. If you say they have a reputation to uphold, I do think that has more weight to it than saying if we all stopped paying simultaneously. What's that?
It's like saying if we could all just drive at a normal speed and not tailgate, then there would be no traffic or whatever. It
you
makes
can't
sense.
even get people to agree on what is the best flavor of ice cream: chocolate, vanilla, strawberry. They can't even agree on something
it's just
like
not going to happen.
I think they're going to agree on something like hacking and not paying ransomware.
Yeah. So, Corey brought up a point, and I wanted to bring it up, where these groups are their own worst enemies. They're tearing each other apart. And this is an example where Mars Stealer the actual code for Mars Stealer was leaked, I think, by another ransomware group. And then a whole bunch of people used that software for free. A security researching firm found vulnerabilities in that particular software that was released. And they actually went and locked out, I think, 5 of the different ransomware attackers. And I guarantee you the other ransomware organizations are absolutely taking advantage of this, and they're tearing each other apart constantly on this. So is that good? Is that because that's sad, Corey? I agree with you 100%, but damn, I just want to point out that's depressing as hell. Like, the best thing we have going for us is they're gonna just let them fight. They're gonna fight it out somewhere.
Someone's like finding a use after free bug in some other ransomware and using it to exploit all of the bots of that ransomware to
and that literally is our solution to ransomware, waiting for other ransomware groups to hack each other.
I mean, I will say that like it benefits the source code being disclosed benefits anyone who is compromised, because now we can like look at reversing the keys or finding a kill switch or all that kind of stuff. Like having the source code lets researchers do a lot more with the malware than they could with just binary samples. But like, yeah, I mean, I think it's just the way it is. I don't know what Mars Stealer is, but now there's going to be like 100 offshoots of it. Like it's about to go franchise model very soon.
Yeah, because now everybody can use it. Yeah. All right, so another ransomware story I wanted to jump into. I thought we talked about AirAsia. Maybe I read it and I was like, we need to talk about this. But the ransomware gang broke into AirAsia, and they basically said never again. They said the chaotic organization of their network, the absence of any standards, caused the irritation of the group, complete unwillingness to repeat this attack, the spokesperson from Daxtein team. The group refused to go through the garbage. As our pen tester said, let the newcomers sort this trash out. They have a lot of time. The internal network was configured without any rules, and as a result, worked very poorly. It seemed that every new systems administrator built his shed next to the old building. At the same time, the network protection was very, very weak. How bad do you have to be as an organization where the ransomware gangs are like, no,
we're not going to touch it. We're not going to touch it.
Our solution. We got so bad that they just don't want to touch us.
There's a bunch of CTOs right now sitting around saying, if we just didn't pay for all these new tools that you keep telling me to buy, and I just let you make it dissolve to chaos, like they won't hack us.
They can't.
They probably thought they were at a honeypot network. They're like the same way.
Yeah. I mean, 50% packet loss is 50%
system over there. Is that real or is that a honeypot?
No, that's literally an airplane flying through the sky right now.
Yeah. Oh my god.
I mean, I guess this is like just the funny. It's like this is just a leaked internal email from BHIS talking to our worst client. Like this is us being like, listen, we want to help you with security, but we can't. And here's 150 reasons why we can't.
I'm going to compare a new tester to, I don't know. I'm going to go with Ralph on this one. Where a new tester gets in. I'm so picking on you for this, dude. A new tester gets into a network like that. They're like, they had all these vulnerabilities. They had all these SQL injection vulnerabilities from IIS4 web servers. And they had this and they had that and they had this. It was like the best pen test ever. Ah! And Ralph, who's been doing this for a decade, is like, no more of that shit. Like, I don't ever want to get hired. I get no satisfaction out of it. And it just took a report that should have been 75 pages. And now I have 450 things I have to document. Can I literally just put in the report, kill it with fire, start over again?
If you're a ransomware actor, yes. The answer is yes. They're like, we can't even get our agent to run on your Windows deployment because there's not enough memory. Or like, we can't even.
You don't have .NET installed.
we can't manage our C2 because you don't have enough bandwidth.
Yes, the internet keeps cutting out.
If you would fix the spanning tree, our network communication could actually maybe work. But...
Yeah. Are you running this network on a T1? Like, what the hell?
It turns out it's all just on one plane, and whenever it goes out of satellite communication range, it just stops working. It's like all the data centers are.
The data center
everything's on fire.
And
like, you could see the company, like, if we produced a report like that, they're like, we're never hiring you again.
Good. We're like, good, yeah.
that was
the only thing is we don't announce it publicly. There's no BHIS blog that says Do not touch this company with a 10-foot.
I will tell you, I don't know if I've talked about it on the show, but I've talked about it internally. I did have a CISO. Was brand new to her job. She just got in this position. She was so excited. She brought in BHIS. We did a pen test, like a lot of testing for them. And I went out to their location and had a meeting with all their devs and all their administrators. And as we're going through the pen test report, you could just see the blood draining from her face. And she was just like, and at the end, she cleared the room. She said, everybody leave except John. And they shook hands and people grabbed bagels on their way out. And she's like, how bad is it? And I said, it's so bad. I recommend you put in about 12 to 18 months as a CISO and find another position someplace else as a CISO. It was not recoverable. Like it's an organization that like they literally had web apps that were accessed database, automatically generated web apps everywhere in the entire environment. And to redo it would have been millions and millions and millions of dollars. It's
So whoever goes to work at AirAsia, you need to have a clause in your employment contract that says it's called the flamethrower clause. And what it states is that you are allowed to remove any asset from the environment with no justification or requirement to replace it at all. It's like that's the only way you should work there is if you get the flamethrower clause in your contract. You can burn it all down.
So there was a hard drive company, I think it was Seagate, years and years ago, and they switched over to a new like internal system for like management of tickets and what needed to be done. And they just couldn't get it off the ground. They kept on trying. And literally everybody was fighting, oh, the new system sucks and you stick with the old system. We got to do this. We got to do that. And then finally the CTO was like, we are now transferring over. It's going to happen next month. Everyone was fighting it. And literally he went in and deleted the entire old system, just nuked it, just flamethrower, brought the entire old system down. And he was like, there, we're now on this new system. Either A, we make it work, or B, we go out of business. And they were able to get everything working with the new system relatively quickly. I don't ever recommend doing that. Don't ever.
There's no consequences if you're at the sea level. There's no consequences anyway. So you might as well bust out the flamethrower. I mean, you got your golden parachute. Just don't catch that on fire and you're good.
Yeah, it's the King Kamehameha thing of like burning the ships as you land. See, now we can't retreat. Let's go.
Yep.
YOLO MBA. Yeah. So, all right. I wanted to get, in particular, Ralph, since I picked on him, this Docker Hub repository, like over 1,600 of them were running malware.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And it hit me.
Only
I use Docker Hub
1,600?
all the time trying
good.
to find only 16. Thanks, Bronwyn. I use Docker Hub all the time just to find random things and, just spool them up really fast. And yeah, it hit me reading this article. Like there's very, very little, like I don't validate that crap. I mean, that just like a breeding ground for absolutely horrible things to spread. Because I don't know if Docker Hub is doing any security audits on this stuff at all.
I don't believe Docker Hub does any security audits on any of the Docker containers. So, I mean, Docker Hub
do take them down if you flag them, but
they're just a registry, right? So all a lot of these Docker images, right? They're a GitHub repo or whatever, but they don't have to be though. Like you can manually push a Docker image and not expose the actual like Docker build file, and just push it in there, and then. Obviously the article talks about doing like doppelgangers, right? Of different, more popular
Yeah, that's
projects,
really an
right?
interesting attack. Doing a doppelganger that's like Ubuntu with
Yeah.
2 users or something. And it's just a crypto miner.
Yeah.
Okay,
your
don't
lamp
type.
back.
Yeah.
So-
So when you paste that command, paste it from a really good source.
Really good.
Crash Override said that scares the hell out of me. But if you take this entire thing and you roll it a little bit further, it's the same thing that's going on in Amazon. Like, you can totally just go one click. Like we did that blog post on Elastic Map Reduce vulnerabilities that Jordan discovered. Like you're literally deploying an entire stack and there's huge security vulnerabilities built into it, but you can deploy it with one freaking click. Yep. And I'm wondering just like, this is just Docker Hub. A lot of people use Docker Hub. Oh, holy hell. Like this is, I'm surprised it's just 1,500.
Yeah, the other wild part about this is that actually Docker Hub, this is related but unrelated. Docker Hub is actually charges money now, right? Like they got really big, and then everyone started downloading all the images off there, and so they started charging money. So now actually people are using GitHub itself to set up a registry, right? So you can just actually pull the image directly from GitHub, where they're hosting the Docker files, right? The equivalent of the Docker build, right? I could see this on GitHub too. Like this is really something that's not going to go away anytime soon. I mean, like we have zero like scan built in, right? We don't have anything scanning right now. What you run on Docker Hub.
So one person in the comments said that they have a partnership with Sneak for scanning. What kind of scanning does Sneak do on Docker? Does it just look for like private keys and stuff, or is it actually looking for? I assume it isn't like malware scanning.
I have no idea, honestly. It's like, okay, so what does that look like though? So a Docker container is just a build recipe, right? But that recipe could pull from a file, right? That is, something, it gets saved into the image, but now you have to do binary or, static analysis on that file. Like, I mean, it's like the equivalent of a virus scan now.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's more like vulnerability scanning. Like you pulled down jQuery version 7.2 or whatever, and that's a vulnerable version.
Yeah, old versions.
Yeah. So it doesn't check for like crypto miners. So maybe, honestly, this is a good opportunity for someone like Sneak to implement some static analysis, like, basic heuristic detection. I mean, crypto miners aren't exactly impossible to find.
But that's what I was going to get to. Like, if you're talking of a Docker container, right? It's not a binary, right? Like the number of places where you can hide malware in that is ridiculous. I don't know how static analysis can detect anything.
I mean, if they can find the jQuery version, something like that. If they can find a vulnerable piece of software inside of a container, then they can probably find an exploit inside of a container.
I don't know if this exists yet, but here's one solution, right? And it may already exist, so I could just be like literally rehashing what's already been done. What about just signing the image layers, right? Or signing the version, right?
I would like that as an idea, because at least then there's some level of accountability.
At least I can say, or at least you could implement something that says, "Oh, check the signature to make sure that this is the."
Well, also they should be taking down typo squatted Docker Hub repos too.
I'm sure they are, but I mean, how That's like
they're not doing a very good job. Their greps are way off.
Their greps are
Xedis brought up just fire up each container and scan it. I don't think it's that easy. Number one, I don't. Yeah. And it kind of defeats the purpose. You aren't supposed to be treating these Docker containers as full standalone operating systems, right? It's supposed to be easy to update. It's supposed to be easy to replicate. It's supposed to be easy to make life easy. Regex is hard, Corey.
Yeah, exactly.
It is. And like the level of places where you can hide in a container on like an operating system, it's not as simple as just looking for malicious binaries at that point. So
there are some things you could do though, and if anyone writes the code, I'll donate the computational resources. Like you could have like a simple check, like similar to like a cuckoo type of deal, where it's like if this cryptocurrency or this container just maxes out your CPU for a half an hour after you pull it down,
that's bad, right? That's bad.
That's probably bad. Nope, that's just Java. Don't worry about that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, just some basic heuristics you could do, or like does it communicate with the internet?
Network traffic with the Watching the network traffic with a tool like Rita.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm in that known good camp here, because I just don't know how many like crazy containers you're going to need to download every day.
Exactly. Just go. So first of all, let's normalize signing containers. If you're a publisher of a reputable Docker container, sign it. What are you doing? Second of all, watch your pastes. You got to watch those pastes. If you're reading some sketchy hacker blog that explains how to totally run a Node.js or whatever on a server, maybe, make sure.
Maybe come back off page 4 of Google a little bit.
Back off. Yeah, page 1 only, guys. Come on.
Yeah, page 1 only. Page 1 only. All right, so next story. Speaking of trusted sources, and this hurts me deeply. New Windows Server updates cause domain controller freezes and restarts. Basically, it's a bug in local security authority subsystem service. And there's a registry key that will fix it. But every time we get an update, every time we get a push from a vendor that causes a crash, we get a little bit closer to being back to the land of, we're not going to push any updates for like 4 months after we know that they're okay. And you know, I don't know what the answer is other than Microsoft needed to test their stuff a little bit better before it gets sent out. But Microsoft is the best in the world at this. There's no other company that does stuff at scale that Microsoft does with fewer issues than Microsoft does on the aggregate. So this scares the hell out of me, right? And this ties into security, because if we get into finding security vulnerabilities and we're telling people to install patches, we are already starting to get people that push back because of things like SolarWinds and some of the Exchange on-prem stuff, where people are saying, oh, well, we can't roll out that patch right away because we don't trust these patches. This scares me.
Isn't that pretty much what WSUS was really like, you know, implemented for? You know, it obviously to deploy at scale patching, but also, you know, many organizations would use it to hold back, right? They would hold back these patches and wait and deploy it into a testing environment, make sure, and then that 30-day life, and then they would push it out to the rest, right? So.
I mean, I don't know.
But when you were doing that, you were pushing it into a 30-day rotation simply so that way you could.
That fly hates you, dude.
I know it's really pissing me off. As soon as I stream, I swear they come out of the woodwork or something.
They know you're talking.
I know. But like we would do, like I worked with organizations that did that. You'd push it back for 30 days and you'd go back and be like, so why are we delaying this by 30 days? And we're like, oh, just to see what happens. You know, maybe someone on the internet will tell us that bad things have happened. And I mean, in this case, there is a thing that says, hey, bad things kind of happen. But like, you have no justification to really do it other than just hoping that someone on the internet will come and save you. And if everyone does that, then nobody will update.
That literally is the approach. We're going to let some other lemmings go off the cliff first.
Yeah, it's like, well, we're just letting someone else screw up, and then we'll learn from their mistakes. Like,
so businesses do that all the time.
They call it the bleeding edge. There's reasons why they call it the bleeding edge.
There's reasons why.
Whoa. This is not the bleeding edge. This is just a patch. So, okay, hold on.
Well,
So Matthew,
no, it should be that it's just a patch. But the problem is, how are you going to know if you're coming out, it hasn't been tested, except
no, that's Microsoft's job.
lab.
You test your patches before you publish them. That's literally the only reason anyone's paying for your software.
Bronwyn's being devil's advocate, and she's literally echoing like what is being said. And
that's
exactly what I'm saying.
So Matthew Kerr had the solution. Matthew Kerr has the solution. Just switch over to our cloud-hosted domain controllers. Only cost $1,000 per domain.
Right.
Yeah, whoa, hold on. You need
and that comes to what you were saying, Corey. Like, you're like, well, that's literally the only reason that we're paying for you. But you're paying like a very small amount of money in the grand scheme of things for your Windows Server operating system. So they totally do.
It's a one-time fee. So is this a business model
That gets back
thing?
into numbers. That gets back into shark attacks and Coke machines, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, something like this goes down, and this is a story that burns an organization, and you literally have CEOs that'll be like, "Oh, we got to be careful with patches. It's time to pump the brakes." These are rare. These issues are incredibly rare. And I go back to Microsoft. It's literally their job, and I'm just going to say Microsoft's been doing a fantastic job of it for the last decade. But every time one of these things slips through, every single time, there's a very much non-zero percentage of organizations that step up and say, oh, well, we've got to pump the brakes on patches. And like I said, I don't know what the solution to this is. There's no right or wrong. Microsoft screwed up, folks. That's the story. Thankfully, it's incredibly rare, and we should still be pushing the gas on getting these patches out as quickly as possible.
Well, and
Coked up sharks are nothing to sneeze at.
Part of the problem, though, is that if you're dealing with management, especially executive management, that doesn't have a firm grasp of the actual technology and the details involved in this, they see something that scares them one time, and now you're having
that's their threat profile.
You're having to deal with their insecurities for the next 10 years because they read something in the Wall Street Journal one time about things going south. It isn't a technology issue. It is not a technology issue.
So it gets back to the Wall Street Journal thing. A lot of the big name, like the mainstream media, they tend to get quotes like, you need to fully validate and vet all patches, because that's like the advice that some jackass told them to do back in 2000, right? And
Yeah.
All right.
So okay, now if you work so okay, here's what you gotta do.
That's who those CEOs become, Bronwyn.
If you work at an organization that does this, here's what you do. You walk into your executive's office and you say, our domain controllers just got compromised because they weren't patched. The ransomware actor wants $10 million. Will you sign this check? We need to pay the ransom or else we won't be able to continue doing business. And then you say, oh, actually, I'm just kidding. We patched because we always patch. Like you gotta
and then you're fired.
offer, yeah, and then you get fired. But you have whatever. You didn't want to work there anyway. If they're resisting patching,
you go work for a company that
you're letting your boss know, sir. I think the thing we need to keep in mind here is it could have been a hell of a lot worse.
like why not Raw said #tabletop exercise on the fly. Yeah, exactly. What I'm saying is offer the other side of the argument, right? If you don't patch, there is a risk. If you do patch, there's a risk if you don't patch. Make sure you weigh those two things because it's not like, oh, well, they won't get in. We have firewalls. Like, that
just snowball executives. Why did everything go down? DGossing. We've got to DGoss
all the hard drives in production.
And then have all the IT administrators in on it and be like, did you finish that DGossing? Yes, I ran it through the Hawk himself.
I bought the most powerful magnet I could afford.
Bought the most powerful magnet that I could find. We got all of the, Cindy, you can explain it to the executive. See what happens. You always hear us talking about packets, sir, right? Well, what happens is that we have these little nibbles. They're like little bits of packets that fall outside of the packets and they collect after a while. So what we need to do is we need to
clog up the network,
Ethernet cables, run magnets over them to clean those bits out. And that's what we were doing. We were degossing. So that's why everything went down yesterday.
Every
scheduled. It was in our change management review notes. Yep. So. All right. Well, I got the last story I want to talk about is making Cobalt Strike harder for threat actors to abuse. Basically, Google has gone through and has identified the versions and the specific sets of Cobalt Strike that have been leaked online and are releasing open source Yara rules and in their virus total collection, which makes me think of Martha Stewart every time I read that. It sounds
it's like
fancy.
A 200009 Merlot or whatever.
Yeah, it's vintage 2022.
Ooh, very good. I love that year.
Is this actually going to work? I mean, I'm not saying that Google's a bunch of idiots, but this seems to me like it's kind of a Band-Aid type thing, and attackers will get around it again.
This is probably the Yara rules, and I'm going to use Yara as general sense, right? The rules that have probably already existed in all these EDR products for the last 3 or 4 years.
That's it, right?
Yeah, I was going to say this is really cool for the open source people that aren't paying $1,000 a user a year for this solution that can identify Cobalt Strike.
Yeah,
but it's kind of a little bit slow. I don't know. It's like this would have been so cool 5 years ago, dude. I mean, it is cool, but nice for the open source community. Nice that it's Yara rules. Anyone that can be implemented in any product, any level. It's super easy.
But this also gets back into a lot of these threat intelligence. There's going to be threat intelligence vendors that are going to pick this up and they're going to throw it into their IOCs that they sell to people. And this gets into the side of cyber threat intelligence that I hate, where we're reselling the stuff that we're already selling. Your AV vendor already has signatures. Your firewall vendor already has IP, deny list IP address, URLs, and domains. That's already in your products that you're paying for. And a lot of these vendors will take this stuff and then they're going to repackage it again. And they're going to sell it as a threat intel feed. And that's crazy. Now, Wade brought up something. Bad. I tweeted this. I retweeted somebody, give me Sigma. And I think that that's great. CISA, one of the things that CISA could do, instead of here's Yara rules, here's the MD5 hashes, give me Sigma rules that I can then convert and get into my SIM for some of these bleeding edge things. Because where you have AV signatures and firewall deny list, those are getting shared out very, very, very quickly. The more granular detects, things you get off of the individual workstations of Sysmon, those are much more difficult. And if we could literally have a base level of Sigma rules to detect some of these things, that would be just absolutely fantastic. So,
Yeah, I think it's one of those things like the number of clients I've had over the years that have been incredibly frustrated when their product doesn't do X, Y, or Z, and there's another version of that same product that does, and it's just like it's just so frustrating. Whether it's EDR is the worst offender. It's like, oh, you want in-memory detection? That's another, it's like you're already looking at it's it's super frustrating. But like I will say,
$1 million a year.
Every little bit helps. I think more than anything, this is like a headline generator.
Helping
.exe.
flex. I think White Cyberduck said they're flexing their Mandiant purchase.
Yes,
like,
for sure.
Look what we found on their Git repo.
But it's like if someone offers you a free cookie, you're not like, oh, I wish it wasn't oatmeal raisin. You're just like, okay,
oh no, dude, I get that all the time. Like a pay what you can class, and like, not ripping on your class or anything, and it's like. I literally gave you 16 hours of training for free, and you're doing a 3-star review. Just F you. Get out.
So the good news is now we can all just we can just show Cobalt Strike TTPs in the open now because we know that there are rules for it. So it's fine.
But didn't the evaluations already light Cobalt Strike up like a Christmas tree? Like seriously, like after they did that I think it was APT 1 or APT 29. Where they used Cobalt Strike, it literally stopped working for all of our engagements overnight. We all switched over, I think. What was it? Silent Trinity. We had to switch over to from Marcello. But I thought that all the vendors were damn good at catching Cobalt Strike, regardless.
So
I don't think this is necessary.
They are good at catching Cobalt Strike in its default form, right? But with a little bit of effort, some little bit of coding, you can make it work. But a lot of the EDR vendors have moved to the point, especially if they've turned up all the NOS, all the dials and everything, that execution after that can get a little tricky.
But if we're talking about YAR rules, we're talking way lower level than EDR, right? We're talking we're talking about something that is available for the masses, not for someone that's going to pay for a CrowdStrike license. And it is cool that if my grandma's worried about Cobalt Strike, she doesn't have to pay for Falcon Overwatch. She can just go and get some YAR rules. Right?
Falcon's so expensive. I looked it up.
You know what I mean? So it's just
Corey, it's for everyone out there. Your grandma does not need to worry about Cobalt Strike ever.
Okay,
ever.
Look, if it slows
My grandma
down
was
the
pretty
script
awesome.
kiddies, if it slows down the script kiddies, that's a good thing.
So you guys remember what was it? Firesheep?
Yeah, that was the browser plugin, right? For
Facebook.
Facebook.
So you could you installed a browser plugin. It allowed you, because what Facebook and Twitter did for a long time is they encrypted the logon screen, but as soon as you went to Twitter or to Facebook, it was all HTTP.
It's faster.
And I was teaching a class in my grandmother's basement, which sounds really bad, but I was teaching a class in my grandmother's basement, and she heard me talking about Firesheep. So she installed Firesheep on her notebook computer, took it to the senior center where they did like pancake breakfasts and played Parcheesi all the time. And she ran it on the wireless network at the senior center and was able to take over a whole bunch of other people's computer systems. Now, she told me this, right? She told me this story. And I was like, Grandma, she's like 77 or something like that. I'm like, Grandma, that's illegal. And she was like, she was like, you really think they're going to put me in prison? And I'm like, you know what? Carry on. She passed away. She passed away on Halloween. I want to say it was like 6-7 years ago. And at her wake, I got up and everyone was telling stories about my grandmother. And I got up and I told a story about my grandmother doing this. And I think this story is hilarious, right? No one laughed, right?
They were probably
after I got done
horrified.
telling the story, one of her friends came up and he was kind of mad. And he's like, so that was your grandma that did that? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, yeah, and she never told us. She was going on people's Twitter and Facebook pages and she was posting porn from their accounts.
Wow, that's hardcore.
So
literally,
I'm telling you, your grandmother may not hear about it,
literally hardcore,
but my grandmother would have. So with that, take us out, Ian. Thank you very much, everybody.